Hey everybody, welcome to this week's market snapshot. What's happened in the Northern Virginia real estate market in the last 7 days in under 5 minutes. Actually, we're going to go over a little bit because we have the October monthly numbers are in this month as well, so this is going to be an extended version. All right, let's get to it. So today we're going to go through the market snapshot, which is where we look at the last 7 days of what we call lead measures, the number of properties that went under contract, which tells us what the demand is, and the number of properties that came onto the market, which tells us what the supply is. So we can look at what's happening in the micro aspect of the market, so we can make real-time decisions as to how to plan on moving forward, both as a buyer and a seller through this weekend's market activity. Excuse me. At the end of the market snapshot, we're going to go into the month over month for the month of October 2024 versus October, excuse me, October 2025. The reason we look at these numbers is because it gives us a bird's eye view of what the market's doing, so it allows us to understand what the trends are, the overall trends of the market. And the reason that those are different is because in that market report, we're looking at sold data. So for example, an average sales period for a property once it goes under contract is about 30 days. So let's say that since we're looking at the October data, let's say that a property closed on October 1st. That means that property went under contract likely on September 1st. So that property is showing us activity from September. So we don't want to look at that as our deciding factor for this weekend, because then we're making decisions that are actually a couple months old. So that's why we look at both aspects of it. But when we look at that September activity and what the sold data tells us, it gives us that bird's eye view. So that's why we look at both of these reports. So let's go ahead and dive into the snapshot, see what's happening right now, so you know how to move forward this weekend, both as a buyer and a seller, and then we'll go into the monthly numbers. All right, so as always, our black line is our buyer activity or our demand. These are the properties that went under contract in the last 7 days. And then we're going to show you what a sampling of what those contracts look like here in just a couple minutes when we get to the contract trends. The teal line is the inventory, so it's continuing on a downward trend. And you can see that buyer activity did drop a little bit as well, but it is higher than the inventory. So that put us up here into a little bit of a seller's market. Now this is all for Fairfax County, but we're seeing similar trends here in Northern Virginia, a little bit different in DC and Maryland. But the important thing here is you can see that we're in that fall decrease of inventory, but it's not as significant as it was last year. You can see that was a much steeper decrease in inventory. So we're getting a decline, but it's still a decent amount of inventory, giving buyers choices. Our buyer activity is slightly higher than it was last year at this time. So we have more activity in the market, and our inventory is slightly higher as well. So more activity and buyers have a little bit more choice because of the higher inventory. So it's a pretty fair market, even though we're sitting in the seller's side of this market. Again, this neutral line right here is an even market. Above is sellers, below is buyer. So we are still sitting on a little bit of that seller's market, but it's not a crazy seller's market. So buyers are getting their inspections. Buyers are getting opportunities to have to not bid against multiple offers. Some properties are still getting multiple offers, but buyers are still getting just getting an opportunity and a little bit more fair opportunities in the market. So if we look at the contract trends to see what that actually looks like, you'll see that, and this is for Virginia, you'll see that 21% of the properties in this last week, this is 152 contracts from October 28th to November 3rd. This is with Cardinal Title Group, the largest title group in the area. You'll see that 21% of the properties still sold at above asking price. 35% went at asking price. So we had 56% of the properties are still selling at or above asking price. And then we have 46% of the properties that went under asking price. As far as time on the market, properties that went under 27% went under contract in the first week, 23% went under contract in the first 22 days. So that's 50% of properties went under contract in the first 22 days, and 56% went listing or above asking. So that tells us that that 22-day mark, where it was kind of cutting off, where you could start seeing prices coming down, it's actually increased a little bit. It's a little bit more like maybe 25, 26, 27 days. So properties are sitting a little bit longer, which is something that buyers need to keep in mind, that it's not the market of 2020 or 2023, where if a property was on the market for 10 days, there was some, you could get a discount. Sellers are calming down, they're waiting longer, and the properties are still going at or above asking price, as long as they're priced appropriately. Now that's the key. It's why your agent is very important. Your agent needs to know how to analyze those properties to make sure that you're not overpaying for a property. And from the seller side, you need to make sure you're not overpricing, because if you overprice, you're going to end up in this 44% here, and you're going to end up getting under asking price. Okay, cash versus finance, 12% and 88% was financed. As far as contingencies are concerned, again, the finance contingencies went up higher to this month or this last week. So 81% got their finance contingency, and we've been averaging about 75% of people getting their appraisal contingencies, and then 75% of people got their inspection contingency. So we're seeing the vast majority of contracts are getting that inspection contingency. And if you notice, this 24% here matches pretty well with the 21% here. So that's where you're getting into those competitive situations, the ones that are selling in that first week. So sellers, if you prepare the house correctly and you are strategic with how you price it, you can still get those contingency-free offers, but you have to be very, very strategic. Buyers, in that first week, if it's prepared right and priced right, you need to be prepared to be a little bit more free with your offer and do pre-offer inspections and so on and so forth. Okay, so those are the contract trends. So again, it's a very fair market right now. It's good for buyers because you're getting your protections. It's good for sellers because you're still getting that top market value, but you just can't be greedy, and you have to put the effort in to prepare the property appropriately. All right, if you have any questions about this, either on the buy side or the sell side, reach out to me and Kelly at 703-783-2143, and we'll see you next week for the market snapshot. But now we're going to dive into the month-over-month numbers to see how October of 2024 compared to October of 2025. Is the market going down? Are prices starting to drop? What's the bird's eye view of the Fairfax County real estate market? So if you look at new listings were up 2.3% in October of 2025 versus October of 2024. So we had 1,043 versus 1,020. So inventory was slightly up, which we're seeing that as a trend even in our market snapshot. The number of sales was also up. Now this is what's important. Inventory was up 2.3%, but the number of sales was up 5.6%. So that means there was 3.3% more increase in buying activity than there was in inventory, which means that demand was still higher than supply in October of 2025 versus October of 2024. So what did that do to days on market? Well, days on market actually went up, and we were talking about this on the market snapshot. Properties are taking a little bit longer to sell, 27 days in 2025 versus 20 days in 2020. So the properties are sitting a little bit longer, and that's because buyers have choices, but the prices aren't coming down as quickly. Sellers aren't reducing their sales price, and the offers aren't coming in low as quickly as they were in 2020. Months of inventory stayed the same. 3 months of inventory in October 2024 versus 2025. Inventory, this is our absorption rate. This is a very important number because what this is if you took the number of properties that were on the market, actively on the market, and added no new properties, and you kept the buyer activity that was happening, how long would it take to completely sell out of that inventory? And right now it's about 3 months. And what that number means, it's called the absorption rate. What that number means is anything 6 months to 5 months is considered a normal market. Anything below that 5 months is considered a seller's market. Anything above that 6 months is considered a buyer's market. So we're still in that seller's market, and we've still been sitting consistently in that seller's market. It's just that the sellers have to be much more strategic. So it's not a free-for-all seller's market, but it's still a little bit of a seller's market. So what did the home prices do? Well, if you look at the median sales price, $745 in October 2025 versus $721,250 in October 2024. So median sales price actually went up 3.3%. in October. So prices are still increasing, but they're not increasing by 7 to 10 to 15% like they were in previous years, but they are still increasing. So prices are not coming down. So if you're one of the buyers that are waiting for the big crash, you're just waiting as prices continue to advance. So just keep that in mind as you're looking through this. All right, if you have any questions about this, again, we're still in a stable market. I'm not going to call this a strong seller's market. Prices are not flying, increasing at dramatic rates, but they're also not coming down. So it's just an overall pretty fair market right now. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at 703-783-2143, and we'll see you at next month's monthly market report.